get to introduce my friend Sonja, who is actually Dr. Trent-Brown. And I'll do that from up here. Dr. Trent-Brown, has had an impressive career in experimental psychology with 6 or more honors and awards, 5 grants, and 6 published articles. Dr. Trent-Brown conducts empirical research in child development, psychological linguistics, and psychological acoustics. And I hope that includes restaurants. She was named the Hope Outstanding Professor in 2016. We have a little applause for that. She attended Harvard for her BA, Harvard Radcliffe, and her MA is from the University of South Florida. Her PhD is in cognitive and neural sciences from the University of South Florida. Currently, she is the chief officer for culture and inclusion at Hope College. She also sings in the Hope College Choir and the Holland Chorale. I suspect that singing has given her an appreciation for all the arts. And today you will travel through time as she explores with us the greatest African-American artists that have contributed to our American collage of beauty. There will be beautiful things that you'll see today: music, literature, dance, and the visual arts. Please welcome Dr. Trent-Brown.
Well, thank you so much, Donna. I really appreciate a very kind introduction. Thanks to Dave and to Amy and all the folks at HASP who have been so wonderful to me. Thank you all for being here. Some are in the room here today, so welcome. And for those who are viewing online as well, welcome. I'm really glad that we all get to share this space or spaces together today. All right, so I'm going to put on my glasses because that's going to help. That is definitely going to help. All right, well, I get the opportunity to talk today about African Americans and the arts. And this happens to be the 2024 Black History Month theme. And so I'll share a little bit more about that. And so that theme takes us throughout the year. I would like to say, especially for accessibility purposes, that I am a 5'10" tall African-American woman with brown hair. I am wearing glasses. I'm wearing a black dress with kind of white abstract polka dots. I'm wearing black pumps, although you probably can't see those. But I am standing at a podium that's located in the center of the wonderful HASP classroom. So Nina Simone sang, Alvin Ailey danced, Gordon Parks photographed, Lorraine Hansberry wrote, Maya Angelou spoke. So Nina sang, Alvin danced, Gordon photographed, Lorraine wrote, and Maya spoke so that I can sing, dance, photograph, write, and speak. And so as I stand before you today, I have a thankful spirit. I'm thankful to be here with you. It is always wonderful to have the opportunity to talk about the arts. I think Donna is right because of my history and experience with music, especially, although with multiple arts, it holds a special place in my heart. And so I am really thankful to be here. And I hope that you'll enjoy our time together this afternoon. So by way of a brief overview, I mentioned that African Americans in the arts actually happens to be this year's Black History Month theme. And I thought I would just share a brief overview of Black History Month. So Carter G. Woodson is known as the father of Black history. He's a historian who was the second Black student to graduate from my alma mater, Harvard University, with a doctorate degree. Now, his trailblazing research led to the establishment of Black History Week in 1926. And at the time, Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History announced that the second week of February was to be known as Negro History Week. And that week was chosen because it coincided with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln on February 12th, and also with that of Frederick Douglass on February 14th. And these are both leaders who Black communities had celebrated since the late 19th century. So now 50 years after the first celebration in 1976, the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History influenced the shift from a week to a month, and then also instituted a language shift from Negro to Black. And so many folks here are probably familiar with Frederick Douglass, who's an American social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman. Some say that Douglass became the most important leader of the movement for African-American civil rights in the 19th century. And truth be told, my first crush was on Frederick Douglass. And I did marry a Mike. I did marry a Mike, not a Frederick. And I get that maybe a crush on Frederick Douglass is unusual, but I first read his autobiography, A Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, when I was in the 6th grade. And I just thought he was just the most. I thought he was, oh gosh, I thought that he was innovative. I just thought that there's a lot of genius. I love all of the things that he was doing for the people and for our communities. And it just made me feel really, really special. And the picture on the front of the autobiography, yes, quite stately, shall I say. All right, so the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History also establishes the theme every year. And so again, I've repeated this year's theme. And so I'm get to talk to us about that today. So there are thousands of Black artists who have made significant contributions to the arts over the centuries, right? And it's just going to be really hard for me to talk about all of them, but I hope that the ones we get to highlight today, the artists that we get to highlight today, I hope will give you a sense of both the historic and the contemporary. So we'll highlight a historic and contemporary artists across time. Now, I will say that the National Museum of African American History and Culture, it's part of the Smithsonian Museums in DC. So you may have had a chance to visit. If not, I would certainly recommend getting a chance to do so if you wish. And for this year, they actually are offering a digital toolkit that would also be worth checking out. So you'll be able to check that out online. And the museum website states that African-American artists, poets, writers, visual artists, and dancers have historically served as change agents through their crafts. Drawn from their ancestors' ancient rites of passage and the shared hopes of liberty, Black artists continue to fuse the rhythmic cadence of creative expressions with the pulsating beats of progress. And so their museum celebrates Black History Month and this year by highlighting the art of resistance and the artists who use their crafts to uplift the race, speak truth to power, and inspire a nation. So we will get a chance to hear some of those themes, I think, as we visit with these artists today. All right, so Nina sang, right? So we're gonna get a chance to hear a little bit from Nina. Yes, we have had some couple of challenges here, but I should be able to just hop out and grab some of our videos are showing in a different, okay, here we are. I will also say that it is possible that we may get some ads here and there. So we'll just keep a heads up for that. Yeah. Or maybe are we Okay with volume. Maybe. Yeah, volume looks okay here. Thank you.
There was a million girls who are
All right, so we'll pause there. And I'll head back over to our PowerPoint here. All right, looks like that's working well, and hopefully that will go in a bit. All right, so we got to hear some of Nina's melodious tones. Her soulful voice was referred to as the voice of an era. She was called the High Priestess of Soul. And the art of this American singer, songwriter, pianist, composer, arranger, and civil rights activist spanned many different styles. And so this included classical, folk, gospel, blues, jazz, R&B, and pop. Now, Nina herself referred to her music as Black classical music. So Nina did feel that the artist's duty was to be able to reflect the times that they were creating in. And so according to her official website, she was one of the most extraordinary artists of the 20th century, an icon of American music. She was the consummate musical storyteller, a griot, as she would come to learn, who used her remarkable talent to create a legacy of liberation, empowerment, passion, and love through a magnificent body of works. She earned that moniker, the High Priestess of Soul, because it was said that she could weave a spell that was so seductive and hypnotic that the listeners actually lost track of time, lost track of space, and they just got so absorbed in the moment. She was who the world would come to know as Nina Simone. And so this classical song, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, was considered to be Nina's own anthem of empowerment. It was an anthem of empowerment for many young Black artists. And the song was actually written in memory of Nina's good friend, Lorraine Hansberry, who's an author. And the title of the song came from a play that Lorraine Hansberry had been working on just prior to her death. Okay, so let's go ahead and get a chance to look at some literature and poetry. And can I minimize this? Thought it would go away on its own. There we go. All right. So literature and poetry, and we're going to begin with a look at a historic figure and then follow on to a more contemporary artist. And so our historic figure is Paul Laurence Dunbar. He was a poet, author, literary genius. He's credited as the first writer to put the African-American experience in all of its diverse forms in front of a broader audience. Now, his work became the voice for the African-American experience in America at that time. He also was really known for his use of dialect to capture the African-American experience. Right? And so a lot of his writing is written with the phonological characteristics, the sound characteristics of the language that was spoken authentically by members of the Black community in the day. And so I'll say language and languages, right? and codes that were spoken. Now, segments from Dunbar's biography inform us that he wrote more than just poetry. He wrote literature in all of its venues, poems, novels, newspaper articles, lyrics for Broadway musicals. Yep, so he wrote short stories, he wrote operettas, he wrote ballads, he wrote orations. I mean, he was really, really prolific. So he is known as an experimenter, an innovator who tried to express his feelings and his vision across all of those many different forms that literature offers. He's been called the poet laureate of his people, yet he's become a voice for all people, right? For lots of people. So throughout his writing runs the desire to explain the ambitions, the hopes, the dreams of African Americans. He strived to show the world the reality of Blacks as being caring, thoughtful, creative individuals, as people and not as stereotypes. And all that while he himself was an African American who was struggling with the racism and oppression of his time, and yet he was and is a spokesperson for all of those who have dreams unfulfilled. Now, why did I choose to talk about Paul Laurence Dunbar today? Well, when we were little girls, so this flashes way back, when we were little girls, my father used to read to us from Paul Laurence Dunbar and from Langston Hughes for bedtime stories at night. We also did get nursery rhymes, so we're okay with our Mersey Dotes and Dozy Dotes. But we also got Langston Hughes and Paul Laurence Dunbar. And every night I looked forward to hearing my father's strong, deep baritone voice. It really is a baritone voice. My dad is a bit of a card. He will tell you that he sang tenor, meaning 10 or 12 miles away. So he actually has a really, really lovely voice, and hearing him read to us was just one of my favorite experiences. It's one of the things that I continue to cherish to this day. Now, what we have here is a segment of one of our favorites from Dunbar, which is called The Party. And this is retold by Oni Lasana, who's a story artist, author, and spoken word poet and musician. And so we'll get a chance to listen to this. We won't listen to the whole thing. It is quite a long poem, but I would like to get a chance to listen at least to a segment. Here we go.
They had a great big party down at Tom the other night. Was I there? You bet, honey. I never in my life seen such a sight. All the folks from both settlements was invited and they come. They come trooping thick as churn when them churn hear the five and drum. Everybody dressed their finest. Shut your mouth and get away. I ain't seen such fancy dressing since last quarter meeting day. Gals all dressed up in silk and satins, not a wrinkle nor a crease. Eyes are batting, teeth are shine. Hair brushed back as slick as grease. Skirts all rough and tough and tough. Every blessed seeming stitch, if you seen them with Miss Ann, you couldn't swear which was which. Men's all dressed up in Prince Alberts. Swallowtails or take your breath. I can't tell y'all nothing more about it. You ought to see it for yourself. Who was there? Now, who you asking? How do you expect I gonna know? You think I stood and counted everybody at the door? Well, old man Barber's houseboy Ike, he brung that gal Melinda Jane, hanging on his elbow and him just a strutting with a cane. My was Harvey Jones jealous, like to stick him like a thong. But he smiled with Bonnie capers, trying hard not to let on. But a person couldn't help but notice from the direction of his look, he was watching every step that Ike and Linda took.
All right. So if you get a chance to read The Party, Paul Laurence Dunbar, and you'll see that it is one of those pieces that is written so that it captures the phonological strengths of the language, right? The linguistic codes that were spoken at the day. So it's a really, really, really wonderful piece. Okay, let's go on. Here. Okay, so that was a historic view at a poet, but really a very prolific author across multiple genres. Here's a contemporary artist, Yori Berry. I first encountered Yori Berry while I was participating actually at an NCAA inclusion forum. And so I was serving as Hope's Athletics, Diversity and Inclusion designee. And the NCAA requires all of its member institutions to have that role. And so I was at the inclusion forum and got a chance to hear this young woman speak. So Yori Berry is a poet, orator, writer, and a children's rights advocate. She's also the National Network for Youth Director of Youth Partnerships. Now, she has worked to build the National Youth Advisory Council. She was the youngest graduate of Harvard University's Summer Leadership Institute. And she gave one of the keynote addresses at the Inclusion Forum that year. And it was delivered through this medium of spoken word. And so here is a sample of Yori's powerful artistry with words.
Do you know what it means to be your ancestors' wildest dreams? To be the inspiration why generations before you persevered against all odds and generations after you believed in the pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty. To carry a legacy, to make history, to chart your own destiny, to wholly embrace your heritage and all that makes you unique. To unapologetically speak truth to power, unafraid to tell your story, to be brilliant, resilient, courageous, and free to unequivocally believe that we can win more than championships and games. Together we have the power to change the world and transform communities. To stand for something bigger than ourselves, freedom, justice, equality, to embody the essence of unity, to ensure every person on this earth has the access to education and opportunity, to be bold, to be brave, to authentically embrace and celebrate the differences and diversity that makes us great, to work together, to build together, to win together as a team, to leave this world better than it was when we came. Okay?
All right. Yes, so that was Yori Berry. Thank you, Amy. So one of the courses that Yori teaches or facilitates is called The Beauty of Blackness. And so she talks about how when her life kind of unexpectedly came crashing down around her, she found herself living on the African continent, and she was alone in a new city, a new country, a new continent. Yet she found that she felt more at home there than she had felt at home in the United States. And for her, that illuminated a sense of invisibility and erasure that she experienced as a Black woman living in the United States. So upon returning home, she ultimately came to realize that we cannot help nor can we heal that which we do not love or cannot see. And so her work then commemorates and celebrates the beauty of Blackness across generations and how a journey to love the skin we're in and in an unrelenting embrace of our whole selves can really pave the way for what she termed as freedom. All right, so that is a little bit about our literature and poetry highlights today. Let's take a look at the visual arts. And Henry Ossawa Tanner was the first African-American painter to gain national and international acclaim. Tanner moved to Paris, France in 1891 to study at the Académie Julian and gained acclaim there in French artistic circles. Now, the painting that is shown on the screen is entitled The Banjo Lesson, and this was produced by Tanner in 1893. This is one of the works for which Tanner is most well known. It is an oil painting, and this oil depicts a grandfather passing on his creative knowledge to his grandson. So a very tender moment of human interaction. Now, the painting was Tanner's first accepted entry into the Paris Salon, and it has been held by Hampton University since 1894. And that's where it resides to this day. Now, according to artist Stella Grace Lyons, despite his success and clear skill, Tanner frequently experienced racism during his time in America. He recalled, "I was extremely timid and to be made to feel that I was not wanted, although in a place where I had every right to be. Even months afterward caused me sometimes weeks of pain." And so Tanner painted Black people with grace, with dignity, with sensitivity. And for him, beauty was an image of extreme resilience. And through his groundbreaking work, Tanner debunked some of the racist notions that had persisted for years. All right, so our contemporary artist, this is an up-and-coming multimedia, multi-genre artist who is located in Chicago. Taharka Baraka, who interestingly enough was trained as a software engineer. Isn't that something? Trained as a software engineer, but now considers himself an engineer turned painter, digital artist, and creative technologist. Right? And so he combines various forms of art and various technologies as part of his visual artistry. The image that we see here on the screen is of a larger than life-sized art installation. It was installed at Iridium Lab 77 in Chicago. Some of us might be familiar with that locale. And so this is actually a 30-foot mural that is entitled The Passionate Crowd. Now, Taharka says that he loves working at the intersection between tech and artistry. So from interactive art installations to augmented reality or virtual reality experiences, as well as more standard forms of animation, graphics, and media, he enjoys creating experiences and telling stories. So I will say that I truly appreciate Taharka Baraka's innovative uses of media. And I also have had the opportunity to watch sessions of Baraka doing live candid art. It's a very, very interesting thing. So, if you think kind of like how a courtroom artist, captures the visual images of things that are happening in the courtroom, that's like this live candid art. And so he actually gets invited to openings or to parties or events that companies sponsor, and he captures the folks who are attending, right? And so he's doing this live candid art, capturing the events, capturing the people in the surrounding active environment. And so it's been really remarkable to see how rapidly his artistic career has blossomed. Just really, really very interesting work. Okay, so now I am going to come to music, which is really hard for me to decide who to highlight, because this is a place where I feel very, very personally connected. So I had to kind of move myself out of the way and try to select artists or pieces that represented musical genres that got their start in the United States. So hip hop is one of those musical genres that got its start in the United States. Now, hip hop culture is much more than music alone. It has been a grassroots movement that encompasses poets, visual artists, urban philosophers, right? Lots of folks who have each contributed their voices and their visions and utilizing whatever means was available to them. However, music is a very central element and one that's been preserved over time in this artistic movement that was created by African Americans, pioneered from Black American street culture, also known as hip hop African American culture. This had been around for years prior to when it became more mainstream, emerging out of New York in the early 1970s. And so the piece that I've selected represents some earlier rap styles. And while hip hop is not only comprised of rap, Rapper's Delight was actually ranked at number 251 on Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time in 2010. Right? Okay. And it was also listed as number 2 on VH1's 100 greatest hip hop songs. It is also included on NPR's list of the 100 most important American musical works of the 20th century. Isn't that something? Yeah. So it's been preserved in the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress. That happened in 2011 for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So we will hear a bit. We got a clip pulled up. The artists are Michael Wonder Mike Wright, Henry Big Bank Hank Jackson, and Guy Master G O'Brien, and they were known as the Sugar Hill Gang. And so let's get a chance. Let's get a chance to hear from the Sugar Hill Gang. It should give me.
Sonja, may I
Oh.
make one real quick comment?
Please, yes.
RAP stands for rhythm and poetry.
20% off
Yes,
deals, you don't take us
It
up.
does indeed. Thank you. Yes, rhythm and poetry. Oh dear. We've got a couple of ads here.
A cookie?
I apologize. I do appreciate Poe, who we see right now in Kung Fu Panda. Okay, we are able to skip finally. Okay, no thanks. All right, here we go.
To the hip. Hip hop, you don't stop the rocket to the bang bang. We can say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie beat. Now what you hear is not a test, stop the rocket, the beat. And me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. See, I am a like and I like to say hello. I'm gonna rock to the white, the red, and the brown, the purple, and yellow. But first, I gotta bang bang. Boogie to the boogie, say up jump the boogie to the bang bang. Boogie, let's rock. You don't stop, rock the middle, and I'll make your body rock. Also,
Okay, so so that may have sounded familiar to some, and now you know of some of its historic significance in the United States. I kind of hide. Yeah, okay. Yes. I think it's not coming out of the computer. I think it is coming out from up here. The question is whether I can maybe get access to hold the mic up there. Oh, that's a good question. I thought that it was up, but let's take a look and see what we can do. It is up. And I can up it up a little bit. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. And so maybe next time I'll just grab your mic, Donna, if that's okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so this next piece takes me back to my graduate school days, actually. I'd be sitting in the lab at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and that happened unfortunately more with more consistency than I might have liked. But as Donna mentioned, some of the perception and psychoacoustics work that I did then meant that we had a lot of acoustic analysis. And so I spent a lot of time analyzing auditory files, most often of voice, right? So, and acoustic analysis just takes time when you're analyzing the waveforms. So yeah, it'd be 2, 3 in the morning. I'd be working on data analysis, and inevitably I would start to get sleepy. And so when I would start to get sleepy, I had this Ella Fitzgerald CD that my dad had given me. My dad is also a lover of music as well as literature. And that would help me to pep things up a bit. So that was one of my go-tos. The other was I Came to Magnify the Lord. I don't know if that song sounds familiar to anyone. It's Another Day's Journey, and I'm glad. And that was great. I was glad too. I'm glad that God was bringing me through graduate school. I think I could not have done that without his help and guidance. So my dad is just a jazz aficionado. I grew up listening to his albums, more so than listening to the popular music of my time or my age, I would say. So a lot of my favorites were actually among his rather extensive collection. Thanks to that collection, I wanted to be Natalie Cole when I grew up. I was also super excited to win VIP passes to a Lou Rawls concert. That happened. I won those tickets on the radio when I was in grad school. We got to go backstage and everything. It was really great. But when I met Lou Rawls, he said, "Let me ask you something. How did you get to know my music?" He said, "Most of my fans are a little older than you." Right. So I got to share with him about my dad's love for music and how I came to know of his music. So my dad really appreciates jazz, this musical genre that emerged from the African-American communities of New Orleans, Louisiana, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, right, with its roots in blues and in ragtime. Now, since the 1920s jazz age, right, it's been recognized as a major form of musical expression in traditional and popular music. So this is how I got to know and appreciate Ella Fitzgerald, who was known as the First Lady of Song. She was also known as the Queen of Jazz and as Lady Ella. So we'll get a chance to listen to a little bit of Ella Fitzgerald. And yes, thank you. We'll try that. Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so here is Ella. Let's see how this goes.
First Lady of Song, is that her nickname? Maybe so. Maybe so.
Fish are jumping. And the cotton is high. Your and your mom is good again. So baby, do
All right. All right, just beautiful, beautiful, soulful voice. Okay. I will not that. Do this, and then I will hide this again. All right. So despite living during a time when music in America was divided into two categories, popular music and music, this iconic singer, Ella Fitzgerald, was the first Black person to ever win a Grammy. And she ultimately went on to win a total of 14 Grammys, as well as the Lifetime Achievement Award in 1967. So again, a very prolific career, lots of different music that she has blessed us with as part of her legacy. Okay, so now I probably don't need to say a whole lot about Queen Bee. As Beyonce is known, but I did decide to include Beyonce as a contemporary artist because she just made history in 2023. So Beyonce is now officially the greatest Grammy winner in the 65-year history of the award. Yeah. So with her recent awards for, get this right, Best Dance or Electronic Album for her extremely popular 2022 album Renaissance, she now has 32 Grammys. And Hungarian British conductor George Solti has 31. So that's how things stack up at this point. Beyonce also became the first Black woman to win in the Best Dance and Electronic Album category. So we'll see how things go. She may yet win more, and each time we'll get to see history in the making, right? So we'll listen to just a little bit of Beyonce here. All right, we'll go ahead and pause there. But yes, and some of you may have seen Beyonce recently is part of the Olympics opening as well. She certainly puts on quite a show, right? It's a really huge production, and fans and audiences. I mean, you could hear just the swell of the cheering and the jubilation of the audience as we just listened to that clip. All right, so I am going to go on. Okay, performing arts. And hopefully I did that well. To me, this is another connection, right? So remember earlier, I mentioned that Nina Simone's song, Young, Gifted, and Black, was taken from a play that Lorraine Hansberry was working on right before she passed in 1965. Right, so in 1959, Lorraine Hansberry made history as the first African-American woman to have a show produced on Broadway. And that show, as many of you are probably familiar, is A Raisin in the Sun. As a playwright, a feminist, and racial justice activist, Hansberry never shied away from tough topics during her short but extraordinary life. Notable quotes from her include those that you see on the screen. She says, "One cannot live with sighted eyes and feeling heart and not know or react to the miseries which afflict this world." I've come to maturity, as we all must, knowing that greed and malice and indifference to human misery, bigotry and corruption, brutality, and perhaps above all else, ignorance abound in this world. She also said, "You are young, gifted, and Black," right? And in the year 1964, I, for one, can think of no more dynamic combination that a person might be. So all of those are from Lorraine Hansberry, and let's get a chance to hear some of her words.
The most ordinary human being, to almost repeat what I just said, has within him elements of profundity, of profound anguish, that there is, you don't have to go to the kings and queens of the earth. I think the Greeks and the Elizabethans did this because it was a logical concept, but every human being is an enormous conflict about something, even if it's how you get to work in the morning and all of that. So that I thought that it would be very interesting in the contemporary American theatrical moment to explore the most ordinary man, say, on the south side of Chicago, who we think we know. You know, he drives you to work and you say, well, he's a nice fellow. But see what he's like at home in some of the ordinary events by the time he gets to work. He's a complicated and large person.
Right. So that I think is just really special that we get a chance to hear from Lorraine Hansberry in her own words. I would have loved to have had a conversation with her, right? Just to hear more of what she had to say. But she has left us a lasting legacy of her work that continues to be relevant, right? Even the Hope Repertory Theater just did a production of Raisin in the Sun just a few years ago, right? So it does continue to be relevant to this day. All right, let's see. Now, so thinking about a contemporary performing artist, here is quite a treat. Lynn Nottage. She's an American playwright and screenwriter whose work often focuses on the experience of working class people, particularly working class people who are Black. Now, she has received the Pulitzer Prize for Drama twice as a young and upcoming artist, right? So in 2009 for her play entitled Ruined, and in 2017 for her play entitled Sweat. Now, she was the first and is, to my knowledge, to this day, remains the only woman to have won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama 2 times. Okay. Now, she is also the recipient of a MacArthur Genius Fellowship and was included in Time Magazine's 2019 list of the 100 most influential people. She is currently an associate professor of playwriting at Columbia University and an artist in residence at the Park Avenue Armory. Now, she's just really a powerhouse artist, as is evidenced by this news clip about her work. And so I will share that now.
A playwright is making history tonight with 3 shows taking the stage all in one night here in the city.
Pulitzer Prize winning playwright and screenwriter Lynn Nottage has a play, a musical, and an opera all running tonight.
CBS 2's Corey James spoke with her about this accomplishment.
This is an incredible moment.
Playwright Lynn Nottage is breaking barriers. The Pulitzer Prize winner has not 1, not 2, but 3 shows performing in New York City in one night, something Nottage says no other Black woman in the industry has done.
It's been a very, very long, difficult, fraught journey to get to this place. You know, it wasn't always a place that I felt welcome.
But that space is changing, and the Brooklyn native is taking over with her show MJ the Musical, to Broadway play Clyde's. Nottage is now adding opera intimate apparel to the list of performances people can see in the Big Apple. And this latest show, opening Thursday night at Lincoln Center Theater, is extra special because COVID ended it back in 2020 before it ever took the stage for an audience.
The first time we all walked onto the set of Intimate Apparel was actually quite emotional. And I think that we were taken by surprise by just how much we missed being together, how much we missed being in a theater.
An overwhelming feeling wrapped around what some would call outstanding success.
I remember telling my mother years ago that I was going to quit my job and make a go of it as an artist. And she said, okay. And I was like, what do you mean, okay? She's like, okay. And I wrote my resignation letter, and the rest is history.
And now Nottage is making history. In Midtown, Corey James, CBS 2 News.
I mean,
All right. So again, just history making. Can you imagine having a play, a musical, and an opera all running simultaneously in New York City? I mean, it's just remarkable. Remarkable. So hopefully, so here's again another name to keep an eye out for, Lynn Nottage. Hopefully you'll get an opportunity to see some of her work. Okay. All right, so now we'll look at the genre of choreography and dance. And Alvin Ailey is the historic artist that I chose for this section. He was a dancer, choreographer, director, and activist who said that one of America's richest treasures was the cultural heritage of the African American, sometimes sorrowful, sometimes jubilant, but always hopeful. Now, this particular selection is of a suite of dances that are part of Revelations. And I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to see Revelations, but it has been called an enduring classic that is a tribute to that African-American cultural heritage and to Ailey's genius. Using African-American traditional spirituals, this suite fervently explores the places of deepest grief and holiest joy in the soul. So it's produced by the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, and I would like for us to watch this, this full compilation. So here we go. Isn't that remarkable? I mean, just remarkable. And I tell you what, I had an opportunity to go see them. We partnered with the dance department at Hope College. And this past April, they were, I think, probably passing through from Chicago to Detroit, right, big city venues, and they stopped at the Midland Center for the Arts. And so we had a chance to see them. It was like nothing I've ever experienced before. Just the way that the dance just, I don't know, just reaches out and just grabs you, just grabs your heart and your spirit. It's almost like you feel like you're dancing with them at the same time, knowing I could never do that. It's like I could never do that, right? But it was just remarkable. I feel like I could see it another 10 times and see something new each time, and I think be touched anew each time. So I really, truly hope that you all will get an opportunity to see Revelation. So now they do lots of different programs, so you got to find the one that has Revelations listed as showing as part of the repertoire for that evening. A friend of mine, I learned later, actually does this as part of every Christmas. She grew up going every Christmas, like some go to like the Nutcracker every Christmas time or season. But so it was an annual thing that she and her family did, which I thought was pretty cool. All right. And so now a contemporary dancer. And this is world-renowned ballerina Misty Copeland. And so some of you may be familiar with Misty. Misty's going to be actually starring in and producing Flower, which is a short film that tells a powerful story through dance and movement. And the mission of Flower is to highlight intergenerational equity and to bring critical attention to the housing crisis in the San Francisco Bay Area. So that should be out soon if it's not already. The project marks the first independently produced endeavor from Life in Motion Productions, which is a company that was founded by Copeland and writer-producer Layla Fayaz. Now, excuse me, Misty made history as the first African-American female principal dancer with the prestigious American Ballet Theater. She has been described as a true prodigy, dancing on point within 3 months of taking her first ever dance class and performing professionally in just over 1 year. And so this is a feat that has been unheard of for any classical dancer. When she discovered ballet, at the time, Misty was living in what she describes as a shabby motel room, struggling with her 5 siblings for a place to sleep on the floor. And so that provides some insight into her passion regarding the housing crisis. Right? And so let's just take a look here and listen to a little bit of Misty's journey. All right. So again, just incredible. She was 13 when she took her first dance class. No. Yes, public dance community. And my understanding is, yes, it just changed her life, that a teacher suggested that she get an opportunity to dance some more. She says something for the importance of teachers and people who are paying attention in the lives of our young people and recognizing some of the gifts and strengths and talents that they have. But yes, but I mean, it's just, again, 13 years old, which some would say is late for a dancer to begin, right? And then within 3 months of her first dance class, she's on point. And then within a year of that first dance class, she's dancing professionally. Right. Right. At that time. Yeah. She's like 14. She's dancing professionally. Isn't that something? And so it's just been really interesting to watch her journey as well. Right. Even coming out of the environment and experiences that she was having. So in a statement announcing the project, Copeland said that Flower represents the evolution of all her work as a performer, storyteller, and activist. As someone whose family experienced the instability of not always having a safe place to call home as a child, the issues of homelessness and not having access to basic life needs have always been important. And that's something. All right. So a couple more, and this is, yes. Oh, I did go one too far. All right. So opera, and this may look familiar to some. This is Marian Anderson, who's our historic artist in this genre. She's an American contralto, one of the most celebrated singers of the 20th century. And her love for music also began at a young age. She joined the choir of Union Baptist Church. Right, a lot of us got our starts. I certainly got my start in church choirs. I joined my first church choir when I was 5 years old. I could carry a tune at the time, but I could make a joyful noise, right? A joyful noise unto the Lord. But so again, here's another instance. Her talent caught the attention of local music teachers, right? And they recognized her potential and provided her with voice lessons. And so despite the financial challenges, Anderson's determination and passion for music drove her to continue to pursue her dreams. Although, as you might imagine, she did face racial discrimination. Opportunities for Black classical singers were limited. I guess I will use the word limited, probably to say the least, right, at the time. And this is a clip. Move it. There she is. Yes, I'll go ahead and do that. This is a clip that some may recognize.
Genius draws no color line. And so it is fitting that Marian Anderson should raise her voice in tribute to the noble Lincoln whom mankind will ever honor. Miss Marian Anderson.
All right, yes, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And so you probably recognize the location. Uh, This was when she was invited by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt to perform at the Lincoln Memorial in front of an integrated audience of 75,000 people. So this is a historic concert that took place after she was denied the opportunity to perform at the famed Constitution Hall due to racial discrimination. And so this further catapulted Marian Anderson into the national spotlight and really turned her into a symbol of racial equality. And so throughout her career, she performed for audiences around the world, captivating them with her rich voice and expressive performances. And she became the first African-American singer to perform at the Metropolitan Opera House in 1955. All right, so breaking yet another barrier. So her artistry, her perseverance inspired countless individuals, both within and outside of the music industry, and her impact on civil rights as well as social change really can't be understated. So in addition to her singing career, she also was a champion of humanitarian causes. She received numerous awards and honors throughout her lifetime, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Kennedy Center Honors, and induction into the American Classical Music Hall of Fame. So really great. And I know for a fact that she was the inspiration for one of the inspirations for our contemporary opera artist, who is Janae Bridges. Janae is also a two-time Grammy Award-winning American mezzo-soprano. So in 2021, the Grammy for Best Choral Performance, in 2022, a Grammy for Best Opera Recording. And again, I thought it fitting to highlight Janae just because, well, not only, I guess, because she is a powerhouse vocalist, but also because among her many accolades and awards, she was a winner of the Marian Anderson Award, right, in 2012. She has performed all over the world. She's also performed at the Metropolitan Opera. She's performed at the Washington National Opera, San Francisco Opera. BET, which is Black Entertainment Television, described her as the Beyonce of opera. So let's get a chance to hear a little bit and see a little bit about Janae Bridges.
Opera is a culmination of every emotion being expressed and poured out through the unamplified voice. For me, it's my best way of communication.
My name is Janae Bridges, and I will be playing 3 songs.
All artists go through phases where we doubt ourselves. 2020 was catastrophic on so many levels. I've had these thoughts. I'm singing all over the world, doing what I love, and my people are being lynched publicly.
Why opera specifically, and what drives to keep on going?
I think of the shoulders I stand upon. Black opera singers were able to break through those barriers and use their voice. There were times when I was learning the piece where I just had to stop singing and cry. It was just like, nobody should have to go through this. People want to see themselves and feel like their stories are being told.
All right, so that is Janae Bridges, someone to keep an eye out for on the opera scene. All right. I think spirituals, we've mentioned them a couple of times, one with Revelations with Alvin Ailey, and then one with with some of our vocalists. So Marian Anderson was one who was known for singing spirituals as well. And that is a term that's derived from the King James Bible translation of Ephesians 5:19, which reads that speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. And so what we see here is the American Spiritual Ensemble. It is from their website. Tenor Dr. Everett McCorvey founded the group in 1995, and many of its members have performed in such venues as the Metropolitan Opera, New York City Opera, Houston Grand Opera, San Francisco Opera, Boston Opera, and the Atlanta Civic Opera. They've also performed abroad in England, Germany, Italy, Japan, Scotland, and Spain. And I really love spirituals. You can see a picture of them here, but we'll get a chance to hear just a little bit.
I'd noticed a trend in churches, in schools, a trend toward gospel music, and music, praise music, and music that was more of a pop. And the traditional, the classical, and spiritual were really being lost. And so I decided to form this group as a way of preserving the classical, traditional Negro spiritual.
Be uplifted and transported by the American Spiritual Ensemble, founded by Everett McCorvey in 1995.
I mean, it's moans, it's groans, it's feelings, it's pain, it's passion. The spiritual is a phenomenon that I don't think we'll ever really know where it came from, but we know it came out of pain and that it's looking for love.
Composed of some of the finest singers in the classical music world, they have received worldwide accolades for their transformative renditions of classical spirituals, jazz.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there, but I love that notion of spirituals being born out of a place of pain, but seeking love. Right? Okay, so spirituals have been among my favorite artistic genres. One of my all-time favorites is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and I just love it. Right? When it says, "Sweet low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry home." Coming for to carry home. All right, and I think that is a great place for us to transition. I would love the opportunity to answer some questions if you have them. I hope that this has been meaningful. I hope you learned something new that you didn't know previously. I hope you learned about some new folks to keep an eye on in our contemporary artists. And just art has such a way of impacting the hearts, the minds, our communities, our neighborhoods. And so I also would encourage us to be that person in a young person's life as well, who recognizes that they have artistic gifts and talents and help to pave the way for them forward. And so let's long live the arts.
Yeah. I see a question. Just a moment. We'll finally get to hear.
I was just wondering if when you hear a song performed by a non-Black artist that's obviously influenced by Black artists or even covered or copied from something that a Black artist has done previously, does that make you feel proud that this is getting out into the wider audiences? Does it make you feel we're being culturally exploited?
So I might just say yes, depending. Depending. It really does make me feel good that there are aspects of our heritage and our artistry, certainly with respect to music. And I could hear and recognize those elements of song. I'm like, wow, that's right, because it is a part of American culture, right? It's a part of American history. And I really love to see that being infused in our current and contemporary artistry. I think the other part of that, yes, is it done out of a place of appreciation, right? Or a place of appropriation? Is there, is there attribution? Is there recognition of the artists whose work is being sampled, right? Or the work, do people say, I have been influenced by these artists in the production of this song, or my style has been influenced by these artists, and and then they list everyone, but making sure that there's not the invisibility or the erasure, right? That we heard about earlier, that Yori Berry spoke to, right? That notion of the invisibility or erasure. And so if it is, I think as long as there is appreciation and there is recognition of the sources that have contributed, then to me that feels like appreciation, and it feels like the kind of coming together of various American influences that we then get to hear represented in the music that we hear today. Yeah.
I'd love to learn more about this. It'd be helpful if I could have a YouTube bibliography.
Oh,
If you could send that and then that can be forwarded
I
to
can
delve into it.
absolutely do
I'd love that.
right.
I think you can also see already a YouTube of a very similar presentation by Sonja, just called Sonja. I don't know what it's called.
There is some overlap with the earlier portion, and it's at Hope, but I can add that link as well.
It's very similar. Sonja's made it a little better for us.
I did. I added and adapted some things that I thought might be meaningful.
Yeah, this particular presentation is being
It is being
recorded.
recorded. Yes, that's right.
Just to follow up on the question about the happy side and the sad side of some of the things that you're pointing out. When Marian Anderson was finally brought into the Met in 1955, she was 58 years old. So the majority of her wonderful career was already behind her before she was ever given that privilege. And the piece we saw was limited to My Country 'Tis of Thee. That is not exactly a showpiece for the beautiful voice that she had. So it is interesting that a crowd of 75,000 is extremely eager to hear her. Maybe the people are more ready than the powers that be to give her what she deserves. I think that's very possible in that time, don't you?
I do. I do. And I think that that has been the case throughout much of history, where we've seen this kind of grassroots movements that start first with the people, right? Being ready or open or willing to receive, right? And then it takes a little bit longer, sometimes a lot longer, right? In order for that to get in with the powers that be, or to see it changing in the policies, or who's permitted to sing where, those kinds of things. And so we start to see some of those kind of system-based changes, right? So I think you're right that it does stop and start with the people. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. What do you see as the significance of Beyonce moving into country music?
Oh, I think that, oh, bless you. It's really interesting. I think that Beyonce, she started singing as a very young woman, a young girl, really, right? And started singing with friends when she was part of the group Destiny's Child. And then she embarked on a solo career, and she's investigated, explored other, various genres of music. And I think that she she still has a lot of what, I don't know how to say it, a lot of gas left in the tank. I mean, she has a lot, right? She has a lot of her career and life ahead of her because she had so much success so young. I think that she's looking for ways to continue being challenged as an artist. And I think that she's exploring new opportunities, new genres, to see how that can help her to continue to grow as an artist. And I think it'll be actually interesting. It was a surprise to me. It might have been a surprise to many of us, but I think it'll be interesting, right? Because some of our forms of music today, we see that there's influences from all over the place, right? There's influences from jazz, there's influences from ragtime, there's influences from what was what I was going to say? But you get the idea, right? There's influences that might be classical influences, right? There's influences that are pop influences, but they all come together to give us a new kind of fusion, right? And then new genres of music emerge. And so I think it might be interesting to see what she learns from this exploration of country music and see how it informs her music going forward, right? There might be something that we, haven't seen. I mean, we've seen various, we've seen kind of classic country, we've seen kind of the great rockabilly movement in country music, right? We've also seen the kind of country pop crossovers. I don't know that have we seen country R&B crossovers yet? I don't know that we have, but maybe we will. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that that's what it's coming out of, is her continuing to grow, as an artist. Thank you.
I was struck by how many of those artists were young when they died, which helps me to transition to where you are working with young people. And I'm wondering, what in your position at Hope are you doing, or are you able to do, to help nurture some of these? Do the kids even know who you are, and what you can do? Do they come to you? Can you reach out to them?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you. And it's a timely question because as my role has changed, when I was primarily in the classroom as a professor, the students, I think, knew me or knew of me more so. And as I transitioned into administration roles, I did start to notice that, there were more students that I didn't know and who didn't know me. And so we've actually just in the past year and a half tried to start to make some differences, right? To make some changes in the hopes of making some differences in being able to impact, or at least just be there, be available, be present for students. And I think you're right. It does make a difference when they have access to, when they can see themselves in their teachers, they can see themselves in their leaders, they can see themselves, right? And what potential or possible futures or paths might look like for them. And so I made sure that, so I continue working with research students so that's one point of connection. I teach a class every once in a while. So I taught the cognitive psychology course last fall. It was a hoot. Oh, so I love being in the classroom. It was great to be there. Yes, we've had lots of classroom experience together with developmental psychology over the years. Another one of my favorite classes to teach. And then I am making sure to go to student events. So when the students, when the student organizations post their calendars, I go through and put things on my calendar so that I can make sure that they get a chance to see me being in their spaces, right? Supporting them. And I think that is helpful. And then my husband and I have actually said, don't let a student of color leave Hope without talking to one of us first, right? Because there are times when, it seems like, I don't know, maybe the students just need someone to listen to them in a way, where they feel that they're talking with someone who maybe understands some of what their experience have been. Of course, experiences vary, right? So it's not monolithic. There's not a monolithic experience, but I think sometimes students feel a different sense of freedom in talking with someone where they don't feel that they have to explain some of those kinds of systemic or societal lived experiences that have maybe impacted some of their decisions about whether or not, whether or not they can be successful in various environments. And we have found that when we've had the chance to talk with students, and that we've actually been able to help them decide to stay. I would love to say convince them to stay, but that's not our goal, right? Our goal is to really to listen to them, receive what they have to say, and then help them to make their own informed decisions. So, thank you. Yes.
So I am sure when you were asked to do this class, you said something like, oh my God, how am I going to decide what to put into the class and what to leave out? I'm curious as to what your criteria were as to what made it into the presentation.
Yes, that's a great question. So as I went throughout today, one of the things that you heard me talk about was some of the accolades or some of the recognitions that are meaningful in the broader United States history or in broader United States culture. And so that was one of the criteria, right, to be able to celebrate some of the, especially the historic artists, as well as some of the contemporary artists, right, for some of the things that they've been able to achieve in their careers. And I think that those achievements not only indicate, accolades or that they're at the top of their fields, but I think it also indicates that they've been able to impact a lot of folks, right? That they've been able to touch the lives of a lot of folks in ways that have been memorable and meaningful. And so that really was one of the criteria, right? So some of the folks who have been named on the top 100 lists or who have won so and so many Grammys or who've had opportunities to sing in these, kind of hallowed halls that have been very meaningful in American culture and American history. So that was among, those were among some of the criteria that I utilized. I did want to also try to have a balance for representation for men and women. I think I probably have a few more women in there, but I did want to have some representation and balance there as well. But yeah, so those are some of the criteria. Yeah, it's a great question.
Thank you, Sonja, so much. It's about time for us to wind this up, but I think this was really marvelous of you to say yes to coming today.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I appreciate the invitation and I appreciate your time and your listening and your wonderful questions. And thanks to the folks who are in the Zoom classroom as well. Appreciate it. Blessings to you all. Yes, it does.